Okay, right. The final sort of, well, we can talk more after I talk, but this is the final sort of scheduled talk of the day. CTX curl. What is a CTX? First off, how many people have participated in a sort of tabletop security simulation? Right, this is great.
You're not speaking about D&D, right?
Well, it's actually, oddly enough, the same skill sets overlay. I find, disclaimer, I used to play, I buried my books when I was like 16, I stopped playing a long time ago. But oddly enough, the same skill sets, or like a referee of a football game, that's the same sort of skill sets. The biggest thing is that there's a couple of different types of simulation. And really, the top one is very expensive, and I've never done this with an open source project, so this is new to me in terms of what it means. Because a lot of the language, and frankly, a lot of the language is not just commercial. It's also like a military aspect, and I could care less. I think language should be practical and not sort of get people all jumped up. If you go to a military CTX, they're just throwing around acronyms at each other. It's like, what are we actually doing? So, anyways, there's a sort of spectrum of simulations. The top being full on, could run for weeks. You could have teams around the world. And real bad things are happening. A long time ago, I probably already said this at last curl up, I did a full simulation on the BBC. This is in the year 2000, so it was a long time ago. And we took down several of the BBC websites, and people were angry on a Sunday evening. And I got arrested, but I had a get out of jail card, but I couldn't get the actual card until they arrested me, so I spent the night in jail, which was no fun.
Maybe it was fun for the others.
Oh, it's fun for my cellmates, I'll tell you that. What are you doing here? Actually, anyways. It was okay, no permanent damage, I'm fine. And I don't do it. I don't do that kind of thing anymore. The value of these are debatable. Like, why get people up in the middle of a Sunday night? What are you teaching them? All you're doing is getting them angry. You know what I mean? So it depends on the sort of scenario or the thing you're trying to test. There's hybrid, which is shorter duration, can run a couple of days, and you can have some real life stuff happening. And then there's sort of what we're going to do, which is just in our mind simulation to try and replicate, what might happen to the curl project if a major crisis hit it.
Did I miss what CTX stands for?
Cyber security tabletop simulation, blah blah blah. Anyways, in military, if you say CTX, they understand what you're talking about. So you're right. I shouldn't throw around the acronyms either. There are other things that are kind of simulations as well. And like you said, Dungeons and Dragons. If you go to Backdoors and Breaches, that's a card game you can play. I'm sure you could get 20-sided dice and do all sorts of fun security games. I think games are good in that it constrains it to a certain time period. But you want to make it sort of grown up enough so you have some signal so you can actually respond to it as well. So having fun is a good way to engage people as well. We don't have that much time, so this is sort of a pseudo CTX. We're only we only have an hour or so, but hopefully we'll learn a little bit, and maybe now is the time actually to send out. I should do that first. I'm going to send out a document that we can all edit, with notes and stuff like that. Just one moment. Where did I put that? There it is. So who should I share that with? Where can I put this so people will see it?
Put it in the
Twitch?
In the Curl Up wiki page.
Oh, good idea. Yeah.
QR code.
Curl Up.
Yeah, you can. If you QR
strap to scan a QR code.
Don't do that.
It's too complicated.
Too complicated. What is a QR code?
Jimmy's old.
I'm very old.
think there's command line tools at QR, that make QR codes that work on the
PX.
terminal.
Notes. Okay, tell me when you guys can open that up. Because notes are a really big thing, and it's hard for me to do notes whilst I'm doing the thing as well. So if everyone could open that up and everyone can contribute, yeah, everyone can write their thoughts and all that type of stuff.
Where did you put it?
That's the wiki page for the kernel.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I see it.
And spammers, please don't add your $10 an hour jobs.
Jim, can you unlock the document?
Yeah.
Oh yes, I can. No problem. Well, that should be the link. Copy link.
You need to set it to.
Oh, private only to me. Yeah.
Right, allow it
Right.
I think it's in the share.
Yeah,
when you click the share button.
Oh yeah, there you
Yeah.
go. Thank you.
And yeah.
Restricted. Red hat? No, I'm gonna have to.
No.
I'm gonna have to have everyone. Okay, just click your thing. Ask to be editor. Okay, Ahmad.
Is there not an option to have like everyone with
No,
the
it's
link?
looking through.
There is, but
okay.
I'm gonna do this. So as many people as possible can just tell me, and I'll do it right now. And if you want, I can throughout the presentation keep on clicking this button. Accept all. There you go. Get access. Share anyways. Share. All right. Anyone else?
I'm just too slow.
Yeah.
Turns out I don't have these things in my.
I have the app. I need to get the
I'll probably add you, Daniel, directly. Daniel, there you are. Send.
Oh, great.
Access updated. Okay. If during throughout you want access, just tell me and I'll. Right. So. This is CTX, right? So, why CTX? All right, so a long time ago, bad stuff happens all the time apparently online. Yeah. This isn't the earliest one, but this one I really like referencing Morris Worm because if you read the report, it's unbelievably sophisticated, and actually most companies don't do this level of analysis. That one of the very first reports in 1988 goes through in great detail of what you should have, what happened, what recommendations, etc., etc. Just starting where it all started, taking this document and reading it, you'll learn something. And most companies don't do this. It's like it freaks me out. This is 1988 people were doing this, and if you just read that document, you'll know for your own company. What kind of things should we do after the bad thing happens as a extended incident response? And I'm just going to blast through a couple of things. During the early 90s, a lot of young guys were trying to prove themselves in those so-called hacker wars, but they weren't. This is just a side effect of people learning computers and wanting telephone time and all sorts of stuff. Throughout the ages, we've had many kinds of attacks. Stuxnet is interesting. There's a lot of documentation about that in terms of incident response. And as we get closer to now time, you have more kind of serious things like the casino hacks. It's kind of they're still dealing with the fallout of you think casinos they hire some pretty top-notch security talent. And they still got taken for hundreds of millions, yeah, and they might be still being taken for years to come, yeah. And what does that mean to a small little open source project like us? We have some money in the bank. They're not going to take our money. Well, that's not our problem. Our problem is sort of we might be the. I mean, we already. What's odd is curl is used in a lot of hacking tools. We're already part of the toolbox. We're in there, and they're using us. What we don't want to do is become the the source of that. Just last month, Prague is getting hacked and being ransomwared, for access. A lot of the hospitals here, bad things happen all the time. And just if we talk about data, breaches happen, and they usually happen, and you don't hear about it for years. Yeah, it's like really quite quiet. What's crazy in the commercial world is everything is quiet. Yeah, bad things happen all the time, and you're not hearing about it. You're not hearing about the worst things. You're not hearing about the hundreds of millions of whatever denomination currency being paid to people. That's problematic. If you don't have any transparency, how can us as individual atoms in this system help respond to it? Yeah. So it's different with what's going on here? I don't have any. Oh, there we go. Sorry. It's different in open source because open source we have no choice but to have disclosure, right? The commercial world, other worlds, there's a different namespace. The open source world, we are thrust into the bright white light of everything when bad things happen. I've just chosen two topical ones: Log4j and XZ. XZ is probably the one. Well, it is. We're going to just go through the timeline a little bit, and I'm glad. I think it was you mentioned it the other day. To me, it's sort of canonical in terms of what might happen if and when something like that happens to curl. So it's worth going through a little bit of XZ. I know everyone here knows about it, but I think it's worth going through just the timeline. And there's lots of timelines online. I've just kind of aggregated them. So in 2005, Lassie Collin created .xz file format. It compresses well. Yeah, that's great. Finds its way 13 years later. We got Yi Tan shows up on the scene. Starts being helpful. And what's interesting is this is happening all the time. We call them sock puppets. These aren't real. None of these are real people. Possibly, it could be just one person. Could be LLM suggested psychological profile from the name to the to what they're saying. Starts participating in the conversation, and you're seeing this where the hack isn't technical. It's mostly human, layer 8 sort of attack where. You have random individuals, Dennis Yeagar, who start nagging Lassie Collin, saying, oh my God, why you're so slow? Or you're why are you doing this? Just basically making poor guy feel bad, and it's just more pressure. We're at 2022, and all of us, I think, reading what Lassie has written, can sort of, we can feel for the guy. You know what I mean? Here's someone who's for 13 years has poured a lot of passion into a project that's become a useful cog in the world of software, and he's being pretty open in terms of and you know what, that little hobgoblin in my brain says, well, maybe these Yiatan people kind of know this, and you're ripe for this kind of pressure. As time goes on, the pressure increases, more sock puppets, then hurrah, Yiatan has become a maintainer. Yeah, that means he's doing all sorts of stuff. He's an organization member. Doesn't mean he can make releases, but very soon he's off to the races here, and he's made his 5.4.2 release. Oddly enough, to me, the sort of next step where you have Hans Jensen, another sock puppet, has added a commit, and that is really critical to supporting the work. And this sort of distributed attack coming in from all sorts of levels it's really hard to understand what's going on. and I'm not going to get into the technical details here. I think it's just more of a overview that this is an attack that's happened over a period of 2 years. Yeah, and the patience of this person or people to spend the time at the technical level and at the social level to get what they want. So eventually the release starts being pushed out, and you know you have people coming along saying, "Oh, where's that release now?" I think with Debian adds Z utils. And what's funny is even you know, evil programmers have to fix their own backdoors every once in a while. Yeah, some optimization they've made, and you know they wanted to update it as well. Okay. What's interesting is there was a sense in the system. The other people were going not about this, but there was a sort of slimming exercise for libsystemd. And the idea was that Yitan or whoever's behind it sees it for what this means to his little baby here. You know, he might have an attack window much shortened because he's almost about to not be able to do what he can do. So it sort of accelerates the timeline. And then finally, you know, he commits the updated backdoor files. And really, from that point onwards, we have an attack window that's opened up. And then our friend Andres detects it. Now, you know, I struggle to find, like, what better person to find this than Andres. I mean, I'm stunned that it wasn't him. It could be someone else. I mean, we were very lucky that he found it. He did a very good analysis of it, and from you know, from the point of view 2024-03-28, you know, all of a sudden things moved very quickly indeed. You know, we cut a CVE. We had an embargo that lasted for a day because the solution was to just roll back, you know, to a previously known good build without the backdoor in it. And you know, this kind of attack has been theorized, and it's probably been taken advantage of as well over the years. And that it comprised of you know, dormant source code that is activated by something going on with M4. So real people in this affair, you know, Lassie Collins obviously, and a couple others. I put Yia Tem there, who's probably not a real person. There's a bunch of sock puppets. When this started, GitHub immediately suspended the accounts of Lassie and Yia Tem, which is kind of debilitating. Like, what would happen if something bad happened to Curl and Daniel got his account? You're taking away the best person to analyze the problem, to do something about it. Yeah, and that's, wow. Well, that's pretty clever. You know, you've taken out, you've given your the attack window is longer because of that. So I'm just going to give a few pages from my side, incident response. You know, there was in Red Hat, you probably had, well, product security certainly was woken up, and lots of engineers, you know, were woken up. In terms of incident response. And really, it's all the normal stuff. But the next day, we had Yara rules, so we could identify the thing. And it really, it was limited in terms of, you know, it hadn't gotten into, it only had been in a beta of Fedora and not really a problem. I think internally what we struggled with was this is malware, and we don't normally give a CVE to that. But we, judging the pros and cons and value to end users, we thought, you know, it deserved a CV. There is the novelty of how it was implemented. But anyways, the CV was assigned. Embargo was removed after 1 day, which is, you know, I thought when it happened, you know, this might be a couple of weeks thing, but then, you know, very instantly we dealt with stuff. So if this happened in the commercial world, which it does, these kind of things. You're not going to hear about it, and it's going on for a long, long time. In the open source world, like, you know, if I step back today, gosh, to me it looks like a best case scenario response. Yeah, how much longer could the embargo be? You know, how much shorter? We had a 19-day attack window. You know, we had good public disclosure, and really, I just can't imagine a better response, other than, you know, in the first couple of days, you know, the person who found the bug kind of led the incident response instead of the lead author of the project. Something we should, but life goes on. So you know, what's great is that, you know, just on the 3rd of April, like we like, you know, Lassie's still doing releases of XC. It's, you know, there's life has moved on. So could this happen to curl? Well, curl seems to be more stable, a bit more resources, a bit more, you know, it might have to convince more than one person, yeah. And the process is, even though I'm not an expert on EggSet, like, I kind of feel like we're more transparent, but that's not necessarily true, it's just my opinion. It can be said that definitely curl is in the same sort of magnitude in terms of installations than XC, and you know, curl's even better because, you know, it's a tool for exfil and infill. You can use it, you know, nicely, so it's very attractive. So the CTX, the idea is that this is like, when I say all this, it's all lowercase, not capitalized. Incident response plan. That sounds like someone's getting paid to do something, yeah. But I think when we do the CTX, what it means is, you know, maybe we can identify how we communicate. Maybe we can identify what steps, and I'm sure we already have some of this. Yeah, it's not like the project's just never thought about this kind of stuff. But maybe doing the CTX will let us, you know, identify things. The CTX I'm going to present first off is topical. Like, I've tried to make when we start, you know, maybe some of us are, oh yeah, this could happen next week. Yeah, it should be sort of in the context of today, plausible within reason. Well, if it was real, then I'd have a CVE, yeah, and I'd raise that on the project. And I didn't want to use a 0 day, you know, just for this CTX. Time box, and let's have some fun. You know, we don't have PCERT, we don't have budgets, we don't have employees, we don't have liability. But it's not really a concern of open source. And this is really where the problems happen when you're doing a CTX, because a lot of it has to do with other concerns that aren't very interesting to us. One big thing with open source projects is the crisis. At the time of crisis, that's not the time where you define your commitment. It should be something that's sort of pre-agreed. I think Daniel's committed to this project. Yeah, I think whatever happens, he's committed to it. There may be other people who are committed to it, but you know, it might be a good thing before something bad happens that you know your commitment. Yeah, know what levels of commitment you want to give during a major crisis, because it can mean something. It can mean something, you know, life altering. You might have, you know, a lot of media come to you. You might, you know, be falsely fired from your job because of certain perceptions. But anyways, the time of commitment isn't the time of saying I'm committed. Like. Is something you should try to plan, not something that happens, you know. So, rules of engagement. We're not going to talk about how, like any person, we're not going to say Daniel. Oh, we could say Dan, just as a generic, Dan did this, Dan did that. Okay, we'll do that, yeah. But we're not going to talk about, you know, we're not going to talk about, yeah. We're not going to talk about Stefan's, Daniel's cat, and, you know, the Chinese have injected, you know, they can inject surveillance devices that listen to Daniel whilst he's doing stuff. We're not going to say, you know, about any specific person's context. So that has less value, and it's not, you know, not as good. There are some capabilities maybe we don't want to talk about here, and we're just talking riddles, I guess. We might say, you know, this is a really big one. All of us are technical here, so we're like, great, I'm going to get a technical puzzle, I'm going to solve it. It's like, no, that's not really what a CTX is here. We know, like, you guys are all great technically. That's not the test here. You know, I'm going to present something plausible, but the idea isn't to solve the technical riddle. You know, it's inevitable that a major crisis is happening. Yeah, and it's more about the communication and what we do. You know, we win, we lose. It's not us versus them. You know, the whole idea is to get some signal out of this, so so we can, you know, make some plans. And some things are never explained. There'll be just some things as referee I'll say that's just the way it is. Yeah. Roles, attacker, that will be an unnamed person. We're all note takers. Yeah. So whilst we're doing it, all of us can write their notes, and I'll synthesize the notes as best as I can at the end. Curl team, I'm going to nominate a curl team. You two?
Okay.
So you're going to be the face of curl. You're going to respond to questions. Are you both comfortable with that, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to bring anyone else on the curl team with you?
Well, it
You can choose one more person.
Okay, we can choose one more person. Difficult.
Or not.
Nah,
I'll let you think about it.
Let's stay like this.
Okay. Others. So just for fun, at times the media might talk or someone else might talk, and everyone else is others. If you don't want to talk, that's fine. Basically, I'll just give a small instruction, and then you can run with it. You know, you can pretend you're a CNN reporter grilling Daniel about, you know, something within reason. I mean, I'm going to give you a little bit of information, and then you can embellish and think about what you would say as whatever role. And if you're not comfortable with it, just shift it to the person next to you. Rearrange seating. I think we're in the right seating. I didn't know if we were going to be in theater style now. This is fine, I think. We got the notes? Right. Before we start, there's some other CTXs, like, you know, you could imagine someone using all the latest tools to impersonate Daniel, voice or video, calling up Debian people saying, you know, we just found the worst bug in the world, I'm sending you a tarball now. Yeah? And it would be very lifelike and real and all that. Those are sort of not very, what are you going to do about that, you know? Sure, we can talk about like secure communications and you know, denying who you are or you know, the deniability, but
I denied everything from the start.
well, it might be a good thing to say you never do that. Like you would never, you know, you would never, you know. The other thing I was thinking of is like in the background of your video, like we'd have some physical device that generates a unique signed number from your PGP, your public key code. So even if they get a frame of video and it has that for that time, you'd know it. But that was me just thinking crazy. I thought it'd be cool to make that actually, but okay. So if you use cloud stuff, maybe you don't know, but AWS has full visibility of your RAM. Yeah, they do it because of testing purposes. But that means anything that's in RAM is theirs to see. So whatever password you typed in, whatever secret you have, is available to, you know, potentially 30,000 engineers, or GitHub. They can probably see your secrets and all that type of stuff. What's the value of curl tabletopping that? Yeah, we can't do much about that, can we? So, oh well. So why do that? I've already talked about physical access, but yeah, you know, Dan's house right now is being broken into while he's not at home because he's already told people he's in Europe now. Yeah, oh, sorry, Dan. But there's no the value of that is just the value of, you know, nation state attack. You know, like, you know, if crazy North Korea, I mean, very sane North Korea decides to take down curl, you know, well, they're probably going to do it, yeah. And what are we going to do to stop that? Like, it's probably, let's talk to an embassy or talk to, you know, the country and say.
Yeah, but we can't stop it, but we could notice it. But it
Yeah.
shouldn't happen in
Yeah.
silence.
But probably not useful as a CTX, a main thrust of CTX for us, yeah. APTs, advanced persistent threats. Yeah, the same thing of do we want to specifically stop Crazy Bear getting into our systems? It's sort of like, let's get the easy stuff done first, yeah, and then increment. All right, okay, right. We're gonna start. Yeah, you all ready? Right. Yeah, you can get a coffee. Let's we can.
Before I defend.
Yeah. Whilst you're getting a coffee.
Maybe the coffee is dark.
Yep, there you go. Any questions? No? Okay. Information is going to be coming to you in a series of injects. That means you're just going to get snippets of information. Day 1, release 99.99.1. Everything's normal. A few days after release, like every release, we get some reports saying something's changed or some AI security slop reports. All of it, we say, oh, it looks good. We're fine. No need for a double tap, release. 10 days later, feature windows opens. Dan gets an email. Friendly engineer. They use libcurl or curl, and they all of a sudden said that they've observed curl sending a lot of HTTP invokes that they don't. They run curl, but they're not running against these domains. And they use it in a tactical way. They're running curl a lot, 100 times an hour or whatever. And the engineer is like, Dan, can we please talk? Because I'm out of options. Don't know what to do. And Dan's like, I'd be happy to pay Wolf SSL for, I'd be happy to do that. Right, curl team. How do you answer?
Very suspicious.
It's suspicious. Saying no is kind of not an option, but it's you can say no as well.
Happy to pay.
Happy to pay, unlike.
I know. Drill team, you have to answer. Yes or no? Would you like to talk?
Yeah, of course.
Sure, talk.
We are
Excellent.
communicative.
Excellent. Next day, curl team and the engineer who contacted you describe what's happening. They say that they have 3 or 4 boxes. Every hour it runs hundreds of curl invokes, and it's just the curl tool, and these invokes, just run against internal assets. Yeah, so they're 10, 0, 0, 5, whatever they're doing. But their logs are showing lots of calls everywhere. Posts, puts, gets to domains that are obviously not nice. And they say, can we please, we want to start a security contract now. Because, this is a big problem. You're the best in the world. Can we sign an NDA and then we can start the contract right away? You asked a couple of questions just about general security. In your sense, it's sort of like blah, normal level of security. They don't seem to be doing anything obviously wrong, but they don't seem to be that well versed in it.
They do have network logs though, which is one step above nothing.
Very true.
Yeah,
Very true.
that's true.
Very true.
But it's very common. I mean, this setup happens quite frequently. Not this kind of problem, but they mention a problem that seems like, rolling your eyes. Yeah.
No.
In reality, it's actually something completely different. But okay, you say this. So yes, I'm sort of very familiar with this kind of setup.
Right. So I guess the next decision point is if you want to sign the NDA and start a contract with them. They don't have the contract in front, but that's the obvious sort of next step. And there's a reason why we're doing this kind of scenario, because a lot of the communications are sort of they can be just contractual, and maybe Dan is the first point of call. Why would they go to their local, computer contractor. You just, get the team, yeah. So, answer? Yes? No?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. You've signed the NDA. The meeting is held with the engineering manager, and also a lawyer is there. They said a few days ago, all their industrial systems were infected with malware, and they're being ransomed for $5 million in Bitcoin. Legal guy states he's only there for observation, but it'd be great if we can find out what's going on here. Yeah. They can't inspect any of their affected systems. Everything's offline. And they're just trying to do a deeper level of forensics. But obviously, they gave one impression before you talked to them, and now you can see, it's not very good.
Also very common.
Exactly. They were able to revert some machines with older versions of curl, but it seemed too late. So it looks like the whole, we're talking about a small industrial SME. They've got, maybe less than 500 computers, and they're tainted now. They're in the perimeter. They've run wild. Now it doesn't really matter if the problem with curl. It could be other problems, but it's not they're not asking you to fix all those machines. They're asking you what was the problem with curl. They use Debian and Ubuntu. Right. Next step. So they're going to send you a contract. Yeah. It takes a little while for the lawyer to write up the contract. But you've signed the NDA. Contract's coming. Day 13. You wake up. Security researcher observes curl is performing infill and exfil.
Is this of the same company? or
Nope,
something
different company. Just a random, and Daniel got this as an email. And they too, they're every time curl is being run, they're getting domains other than what they've allocated. Well, once again, this is just curl. There's no one here yet who's using lib curl. The company gets back to you, and they've sent you a legal letter saying it considers you liable. You signed an NDA, so you can't discuss it anymore with anyone. You've got to retain lawyers to just start talking to them. So that's turned quite serious now. So the companies have used the bait of contract to get you into a legal situation. On the same day, you get Cloudy Pants. Is a giant company, and their C curl containers are being used to mediate a very large distributed DOS. They also see unusual infill activity and have engaged crisis plan. So, given you've gone from one company to a couple of problems, how do you, as a team, how do you respond to this? Like, what's going on? What are you guys thinking? Not as a technical solution. It's like, oh my God, we're getting a lot. What would be your your plan of action?
My plan of action, as always, when things like this happen. I mean, not that this kind of severity, but just when things come up, it's just. The first thing I do is always ask for more details, because they're never enough. They're always vague, and there's so many unanswered questions in every claim that that's my regular response, to just buy more time and get more information, and then of course discuss with the other people in the curl security team. Talk about at least what I would be allowed to do. Then if I sign this NDA, I would be limited to not discuss that part maybe, but what the other parts I could still discuss.
Mm-hmm. In terms of severity, like, does this feel like something normal, or is this like an abnormal?
It's of course totally abnormal and totally super strange. That's also why, it wouldn't be in my dreams that curl would ever have this kind of breach or sort of
Right.
distributing something. So my response would just be confusion and puzzle how this
Right.
what's going on, right? So I would just grasp for straws for some kind of explanation here because it seems totally implausible.
So does anyone want to be Cloudy Pants tech engineer? Calling up one of the Dans? Anyone want to represent them just with random questions? All right, Dan.
Okay.
Okay, our Cloudy Pants engineer calls you up. Says there's big DOS going on.
Hold on. Oh, okay. I'm calling him up.
Yeah, and you've got some questions, and feel free to expound. That's all the information you know. You're really in the dark as well, but you see logs, you see DOS, and you see unusual infill activity, and you have your own crisis plan, so you've engaged it internally, and now you want to talk to Dan and Dan Curl team. What kind of questions would you have of them at this stage?
So, obviously at this point I have suspicions that it's curl at fault, which is why I'm talking to Daniel.
Yeah, it's almost you know 100. Well, you know it's probably curl happening.
Okay. Yeah, it's hard for me to put myself completely on the side of Cloudy Pants as opposed to the curl side.
Yeah.
'Cause I know what I would ask him, but so I guess I would want to see. Well, okay, as a Cloudy Pants engineer, I would try to narrow down which curl is involved. Like, is it in the source distribution? Is it from Ubuntu, which presumably we are a large user of? Or is it something else, some other curl binary that came from someplace completely different?
Right. So, given that question, you should be able to answer what question the curl version you're using 99.99.1. And I guess what you're asking of the curl team is, what's affected. Can you confirm what's affected? Is it just the last version?
I don't know if it's anything in our code at all that's affected.
Right.
Because they have a binary made by someone. We don't deliver a binary. We just do. So the first thing is like, is this binary really built from our source code?
Yeah, exactly. So the first step would be 99.99 that release. I mean, it's up there. We could just check the source code, the tarball now.
Mhm.
It's a reproducible tarball, so we can just reproduce that to make sure that it's actually the one we released. And in that case, it seems unlikely that the tarball would. So then it will be a question. Next step, what binary are they running, and what does it come from? Who built it, and how?
Right. Okay, we'll move on. Day 14.
I just want to also add that, of course, it adds to the confusion then that he's not alone, right? There's more to it. So since this sort of out of the question that it's our fault here, so I would sort of see then the common pattern between the other ones and this one. What's the common players here?
Yeah, and you might, because there's a few different data points, you're like, oh, there's probably something wrong.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Something is wrong here. So sort of they're not making this up. So it happens, but how does it happen, and where does it come from?
So, day 14, and one thing I'll just as observing as referee is that it's really important to assess the level of risk, because the level of risk of a CVE, a high or critical CVE in curl is one thing, yeah. But the level of risk going on here is really high. Like think of Lassie Collin. He's gotten his thing revoked. He's being implicated that he might be part of this bad team. Like it could be life altering, and I'm sure it altered his life for a period of time. So we're not just talking about fixing a CVE here. There's lots of money getting involved. There's legal action, and what you do now can determine how you're able to respond to.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I would suggest is that when you can see you're not just dealing with a normal thing, that, you know, when you're planning for a major crisis, there might be something, you might be doing different things in a major crisis versus just working the problem. And we can talk a little bit more.
That's true, and I think the problem is when to sort of when is it a major problem?
Right.
Because it increases gradually. At some point you have to consider that, but
Right.
before that you don't.
And you like it can mean a lot that you said, right, I've activated a major crisis plan, yeah, because it's just a different set of circumstances. Do you think with what you know now, very early days, does this feel like a major crisis, or you still want a bit more time? Like, you don't want to you don't want to like ring the bell just unnecessarily.
I think the problem is, of course, I have that binary. Is it not major or is it major? But I think I would qualify it as a major because
Right.
it's sort of unprecedented and several cases. So I would probably rate it as.
Yeah, it's not in the usual parameters.
Right.
No, it's totally out of the ordinary. Or actually, it's never happened to
Right.
that before, right? So, yes, it is a major event, whatever it is.
Mm. So day 14, next day, the user on the mailing list says, "Oh wait, I found in /temp the curl RC file. Temp is world writable, and she found a bunch of offending commands in the file. And she replicated the behavior of, you know, they're running their curl, doing their stuff, but a whole bunch of other stuff is happening. Yeah. And you know, I think we had a conversation maybe a couple of weeks ago about what fun we can do inside, you know, curl RC. You can do all sorts of fun stuff. You know, you would just say, don't do that. Yeah, don't do that because it's bad.
Use ./.
Yeah, yeah. So, Stefan, well, I'm sorry, I'm not talking about.
Yeah.
I'm going to use his name. Stefan, because things are getting bad, he went through all the source code. And he found one entry. Some user said in LibreOffice GNOME Terminal, KDE Console, they generate ephemeral project config files to XDG runtime dir. Can curl do the same thing? And it looked normal, like, okay, we can do that. Well, one of the problems is that on some operating systems, the fallback, if it's not defined, is to temp. So an innocent sort of looking commit, one-line commit to enable. Now, I'm not saying this would ever happen. Once again, there's a plausibility thing. It could be plausible. It could be that you were on vacation and someone said this is great and the tests all pass. But it's one line in a big source code that someone can now do bad things. And it happened. We just accept it. Yeah. And bugs happen all the time. You know, we make bugs all the time. But this is sort of the result of one commit that got under the wire in a plausible scenario. And if you want something more obvious, you know, I think we check for hex code and all sorts of fun stuff. Yeah. I mean, obvious things like that would be, but you can imagine with LLM that a lot of plausible stories can be said about certain commits. Yeah. To find a really distributed way that's not very visible. Yeah. Okay, so you know this now. What's your response? Stefan's woken up. Aha! I've root caused it. This is what's happening, especially if it's been confirmed here. What do you do? How do you communicate this? Are you communicating at all to anyone?
Internally, of course, but I mean, with the regular curl security team. So,
does anyone want to be CNN and ask a couple of questions? Well, what's going on with curl? No? Okay, I'll be CNN. Daniel, I've heard that there's an RCE in curl, and it allows people to access all of their machines. What are you doing about it? When is it going to get fixed?
I would be open and admit that there is a problem and that we're working on it. I couldn't really reveal the details because that would just make it even worse.
And would that be in the form of writing or video or a telephone?
Well, probably a lot of that, and why we would work on fix or an update. So,
And would there be a cadence to your communication, or would it just be asynchronous? Everyone's calling you now. Everyone's calling everyone in your family. Everyone's calling everyone to try and get information. After the incident at Red Hat, with our incident response, the moment we unembargoed, within minutes we had major news people calling us. Like as an individual, like even with PR and like that kind of things, you can handle it. But as individuals, you don't know how sneaky these people can be. Yeah, and they can take a word and make it one thing or the other. So one of the things about communication, especially with the media, is you got to have a plan before. At this level, at major crisis stage, you need to have a plan.
So I'm involved with a nonprofit, and we had an incident plan like this, dating from a long time ago, and we had a statement, a predetermined statement that we would say in the case of a crisis. And it was just a few sentences, we understand that this is an issue, and we think it's terrible, and we're working on something along those lines. Well, recently we redid this and ran it by a lawyer, and he said, no. It looked completely innocent to me, but the lawyer says, no way, this can be twisted and used against you. So he gave us a replacement, was just almost nothing, just one short sentence, and I don't remember what it is exactly, but it said almost nothing, just so we have something to respond
We
to.
are investigating and have no further comments at this time.
Oh, well, I think a communication plan doesn't have to be complicated. It's just make it very clear what you're going to do in a major crisis. It's different than in a normal CVE, dealing with that. I think it's a good idea to have a standard statement. I think it's probably a good idea to have a regular cadence. So when CNS says, "When are we going to hear from you next?" How are you going to answer?
Right. Yeah. Within a few days, I guess.
A few days is a really long time.
Yeah, but I wouldn't
As
promise
soon as we have
anything.
Yeah, potentially hundreds of millions of whatever might be exposure of
And I would ask you, where are the customers? Well, they didn't pay anything for them.
Well, that's
I
a
wouldn't
good.
say that.
No, that's a great idea because some people will say it's
That
not
would
my,
be
not my
the
problem.
implication, but I wouldn't actually say it.
That's when I say define your commitment before a major crisis happens, because you could easily say that it's not my problem. Some people on
No,
your
I can't say that.
by the way, some people on your
No,
team
we
might. Other Daniel might sit there when the Guardian reporter shows up at their doorstep. Says it's nothing to do with me.
No, but I would probably still say that we probably have it fixed within a few days. I mean, sure, that would sound super long, but I would still possibly say something that the paying customers are prioritized.
Right.
Just to sort of drop
fair,
that
yeah.
as a sort of.
At this point of knowledge, we could certainly, if you say that to a reporter or not, but so we would certainly tell the distributions to revert back to the previous version.
That is true. So yeah, we would do a lot of that, and of course communicating about this actually.
So
the fact that we found.
We could
something.
definitely say then with the knowledge that
It
not
depends.
to the reporter, we wouldn't. My idea would be to coordinate with the distributions. So that's a channel where this mistake, bug, whatever it was, got out to people, so that they can revert to the previous versions. So when customers apply their Debian, Ubuntu, whatever security upgrades, they will go back to curl 98 something. As an immediate mitigation of the issue.
That sounds like a good plan.
Probably. I mean,
And to
depends.
the press, I would
Yeah.
try to say as limited as possible, as long as that hasn't happened.
And it would depend a little bit, I think, if we're entirely sure that it's limited to this, right?
Yeah.
It would take a little time before. I mean, sure, we know that that's the particular commit that has introduced something, but I would still sort of give it a little bit more time first to know sort of a little bit more about the.
Does anyone, like just as yourselves, have a question of the curl team in this situation?
I do.
Yeah?
We go to like day 15 or something. When would you communicate with distributions to revert to the new version?
Yeah, I would do that pretty soon, I think, but I mean not immediately because that's one commit. Sure, we found that commit, but I would give some more hours
At
into
this
looking.
point, are you assuming malice or just a mistake?
Yeah, that's the question. Because I would sort of, yeah, sure, there's a line there, but and is that the only one? And was it how did it come there? So I would actually give some. I mean, I don't have to spend a lot of time. I would spend a few hours investigating,
No, we
sort of
would-
digging more.
We would want to have a feeling that the previous version is actually good.
Exactly.
And not also has some great.
So that would be sort of give that a little bit research first before I would tell anyone actually, because
Yeah.
otherwise I would just randomly, because I don't want to do no. By the way, I forget about that. No. So I don't want to give
Log4j had a very long tail of fun stuff happening after
Yeah,
they
yeah.
found
Yeah. And of course we can't rule that out anyway.
Right.
But I would sort of at least sort of we find that commit that's bad. I wouldn't just immediately yell revert and go back to the previous version. I would first spend a few hours to make sure that the previous version seems to be okay.
Mhm.
I mean, give that at least a cursory check.
Mm.
It seems to be okay, and then pretty much tell everyone revert to this. Something seriously bad is in here. Like we would do any patch release with a little bit of extra alert alarms.
And then the plan would be when the major distributions would say like, yeah, we are ready to have this. It's available to our users, to our customers. Then we could say like, communicate to the outside, there is a problem in version 9.9. Update your distribution with the usual update mechanism, so the problem will be fixed then if you have done that. But of course, if through this someone was infected, everything is on infected systems. We cannot make a
Right, that's a secondary problem
Yeah,
now. So,
but
yeah.
to for example, to avoid any more problems, use the usual Debian Ubuntu update mechanisms,
Right.
and it will be fixed. So that's
Any other questions of the team?
Well, one thing that just came to mind here is the NDA that was signed right at the beginning before the whole scope was understood. You have to make sure that that doesn't limit the ability of you to talk about the incident once it becomes light elsewhere. So hopefully
That is
SSL
true.
lawyers will help.
Unfortunately, they just signed a blanket NDA. Yeah, so what legal would you, when you sign an NDA, is that Wolf SSL? Sorry, I don't want to
Yeah.
get into details, but
Yeah, exactly. But that's one of the
Yeah,
reasons
yeah.
why I have others
Right,
involved,
right,
right? Because
right.
I'm not qualified
Sure,
to do
sure,
that. So I
sure.
need help to do that.
And
So
maybe
I
you
have
can-
other people making sure that whatever agreements we have has some kind of legitimacy and likeliness of being okay.
Yep.
So I would not ever sign an agreement to sort of generally shut up about everything. Right?
Well,
it would be limited to their use case, their report, and their particular things.
I signed the NDA with the wrong name.
that's a good idea. Yeah. Daniel, yes. But you know, it might
He
be
signs my
it might be worth
NDA.
as an action in the notes to say review NDA. You know, just to make sure that you are. Because this is a common tactic with regards to companies. You know, they're going to try and get you because they're companies. They don't want it. They don't want anyone to know about it. Yeah, they don't want anyone to know about it.
And to complicate matters, that company signed an NDA with me or with my company involvement,
Yeah.
not with the core security team.
Exactly.
So all the others they contacted the core security team, not
Exactly.
me, and all would be allowed to speak
Yeah,
about
yeah.
it anyway, even if I had signed an
Yeah,
NDA
yeah.
with that first company.
True.
So it's also
So
Sure.
you could say like, in worst case, you would say like, I'm not really possible to work on this. You take care of it.
yeah, exactly. If I really signed a really crappy NDA, then I would have to do that pretty much, or at least the public
Yeah.
communication.
And how many days would it take for your people to review an NDA coming to them? Would it take it a day? Would it take a week? Probably a week.
Quickly.
Yeah.
Quickly.
Yeah.
This is a small company
Yeah.
eager to do business. Everything goes really fast.
Yeah.
It's an American company too. They're ridiculously fast. sometimes.
But that's slow for this kind of event. That's really slow. Like a week. Like
yeah,
things
but
will
a
move
week
on.
is
Yeah.
I mean, we talk days.
Yeah.
At the most.
So let's just review. So innocuous change,
But I would also like to add, I still don't understand the attack, so we still.
That's
sort of
some things
questions.
are not explained.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it adds to the mystery too, so that's why sort of uncertainty around things as well.
Right. So day 15, you feel like you're in possession of the facts. Do you call back anyone? Do you just not talk to anyone as a default state, or are you in constant communication? Are you telling them, oh, we got to fix, like any individuals, like on the mailing list? Are you telling people that we're working on a fix? Like how are you and who's talking for the team? Is it all of you talking to everyone, or do you have one point of contact?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, first, I think, talking about just the fix here, it would be an embargoed announcement to the distros open wall mailing list about a pending update of curl with this security problem fixed. And we would embargo that just a few days, just to get everyone sort of prepared to get some patches ready, but not a week, probably even less, and then release it to the public pretty soon, because I think it's the best way to do it. And then about the communication part, I don't know really how we would do that.
I mean, are we communicating in PRs about this? Are you raising and running tests through that are visible to everyone?
Yeah, we do, but so we have that policy, right? So we merge security fixes 48 hours before we release them. So
Sure.
yes, and that's basically because the only way we have to verify the test or the changes properly before we do the release. So we more or less have to do it. So we tell the distros list about the pending release. It's coming in 3 days, say, and then 48 hours before that release, we merge, or we make a PR with a fix, with an innocent sounding
But
name.
we would make, that we would do after the distros have like the rollback to previous version.
Yeah, since this is a special case, we would probably have a sort of special communication with some distros. But a little some, because we don't have.
We don't have all.
We have a limited
But,
reach.
this is important during the crisis to have just a set of who's the point of contact. That doesn't mean someone's a PR person, but maybe instead of having a person, just have a new email address set up for major crisis, and you communicate everything through that. Or maybe even have an account, a GitHub account. I don't know. Or maybe on the curl SE website, how we have the curl up banner now, some standard communication approach to bring it all into one point. Some real problems can happen if you have. You can't stop people talking. That's not the point. But it's good to all talk on one.
Yeah, but we cannot just do a fantasy account to make these announcements and give credibility to the announcement. So it would best go to someone who represents the project to the outside to have
So maybe
viability.
you talk to someone like a PR company, like a local PR company. Maybe there's a crisis management company that you should just talk to reach out to when something really bad happens.
Possibly, but that's also really complicated. And talk about adding workload. We would already be under sort of pressure and stress and load, and then try to find someone to.
Oh no, I'm talking about do that before this event happened. Like maybe you just need an address book with people who could come in and take over this activity whilst the team focuses on the technical problem.
Yeah, I know the OpenSSF is talking about having that kind of organization set up ahead of time.
Okay.
Yeah, so it might be worth.
Projects can go there and say we need help.
Yeah.
Exactly, and have that set up ahead of
Okay.
time so that we could sort of pull the lab.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
it could be
and say we need the help.
probably quite easily is in the security team, just have a procedure that step one in handling a security incident is designate one of you
Incident commander. Yeah.
to be the public
Yeah.
person for that particular issue, which might default to Daniel, but it might be someone else depending on.
Well,
the
you know, there are times in life where it can't be Daniel for everything,
Yeah,
right? It might be that, you know, that anything can happen. So can anyone on that team be the incident commander, you know, or incident captain?
That's David.
And would you be comfortable with that, for example? Like, you know, would you be comfortable with anyone else other than you leading it?
Well, I would be perfectly comfortable with that.
But those people probably aren't tooled up to be like the
No,
incident.
I would possibly think that the problem with that would not be from our side, it would be from someone else's side.
Maybe,
So
yeah.
that would all the others accept that one of the guys from the code security team shows up and says, hey, I speak for Colonel. Maybe, maybe not.
An interesting question is like, what kind of plan does Debian or Ubuntu have in this case?
Excellent,
And
excellent.
additionally, how would all the others just trust that it's some random guy shows up and say, hey, I speak for the current
Right.
team now.
Right.
But I mean, like, I imagine that, I mean, this scenario which you point out, this is something that hopefully Debian, Ubuntu, or whoever is at some point in time thinking about as well, because like, they are then in a similar situation.
Yeah.
So,
You know, it's a tidal wave in a very short period of time.
so I mean, for the curl project, we have very good contact to Debian. I would try to make common cause here and bundle our forces.
So band together.
Yeah, because I mean, in the end, they will have to, whatever fix we do, they will have to bring it out to the people. And they are a larger organization. Maybe they have a PR person somewhere in contact to take charge in such a situation. So
Yeah, but I would be less concerned about the PR.
Sorry,
No,
when
but
I
something
say
you
PR,
can
it's about
delegate
communication
away.
management. It's not necessarily about the propaganda you're pushing out. It's about freeing up like the roles of the team. Someone on the team is doing the communicating. Yeah, that doesn't mean they're making the decisions. It's just it's regularly dealing as an interface to this thing that's going to happen. It is pretty overwhelming for people when it does, like having a person do that just frees the team up to be more clear-headed on it. And I think it's a good idea to bandy together with the other like-minded open source
yeah, I
projects.
mean, we would have like, if you would make a standard statement coming, if that's possible with the NDA, coming through Daniel, because he's just the face of the project, and say like, we are working with distro blah 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 and blah 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 to bring out a fix as soon as possible. And in the meantime, we recommend everyone to use the usual security updates of the distributions to downgrade to the previous version.
But yeah, I think the main thing is that the security team as a whole is very clear on who this person is for this particular incident. It might not be Daniel for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Could
Yeah.
be because of the NDA, could be because of you're on vacation.
I mean,
there's no
ideally-
internet access, could be anything.
You don't have to get there all in one step. It could be that whatever incident happens now, it's going to be Daniel, and we know that. But the goal would be to eventually have it generic enough so anyone on the security team can do it, yeah? And you work your way incrementally to that
So
best case.
I agree with you. The plan would be when we see like this is like really outside usual CDE things, like this is a major thing going on, to security related, to designate one person as the communication to the outside. If possible and willing, that should be Daniel with the most credibility. If not possible, because for example this NDA is stupid, another person, and everyone else, if pressured, would just say like, I'm not saying anything, everything has to go through Mr. So-and-so.
So question, how is the security team communicating with each other during this event? Are we emailing each other? Are we using SMS? Are we using Signal? Are we using, what are we doing?
We're using email, IRC, and Signal.
Right. So, is there communications we're having that we don't want other people to know about?
Potentially, yes. I mean, or rather, we don't, we want the communication to be private
Yeah.
for as long as, for this moment, right?
Right.
And we want to share everything in private because we want to be open and able to talk about everything before we publish or expose anything. So yes.
So at this stage, I always say, has there been a security incident that you've seen that you like the way they communicate? Like it happened. Did we like the way XZ happened and how it was communicated? Do we like the way Log4j happened and how it was managed from your point of view on the outside? You know, a really good thing is to look at, you know, there's a lot of incidents that have happened in the open source world. Some are good, how they responded, some are bad. It can be useful to like just say, oh, that's the way I'd like the curl team to respond. Right, looking at the time, just going to move on a little bit here. So, curl team has a fix. You come out with 99.99.2. CISA and others have a camp, so we have an exploit. There was a window of 19 days. There was an exploit. Yeah, the media has picked up on Cloudy Pants problem. We get a phone call. Daniels get a phone call from a car manufacturer saying they've got hundreds of thousands of cars with problems, you know, with malware running on their entertainment systems. Are you certain this fix is going to fix it? Yeah, because we have to update all those is basically recalling all those cars, and all that entails.
We are publishing source code without any warranty. First, if they want beyond that any services or recommendation, it's a separate commercial agreement.
Unfortunately, because it's a couple 100,000 cars, you're all getting personal emails from personal people saying, "Why did you infect my car?" And people are getting angry.
The Instagram email.
People are getting really angry.
The car
People are,
hackering.
you know, they're sending insults. They're saying, you know, you're basically assholes.
Yeah,
Why you people are making money off? And you know, you get those kind of emails, but it's a drip, drip, drip. But multiply that by, you know, potentially a lot more. You know, that could have a personal impact on you as well. You know, it could be members of your family. You know.
Not only that, it's like a really denial of service attack.
Exactly, it'll take your time up. Like, you know, it's about scale. Every time, you know, we get burned by the scale everywhere. I mean, there's really no response to this. I think the curl team is in it. It just adds more pressure. So the next day. Hurrah! 99.99.2 fixes everything. Users are now dealing with the side effects of the, you know, of the bad stuff that came in. It's a really long tail of crap. Microsoft never ran 99.99.1, and they finally started running 99.99.2 because it's the latest and best version of curl, and they're running it internally. But now they're finding they're seeing some malware activity. They're not seeing the inbugs, but all of a sudden they see problems. And they say, "What the heck are you doing? You said it was fixed, and it's not. How do you respond?"
Well, where is this is a security? This is just someone reporting a bug, or
No, this is someone saying,
have malware activity.
you're in the news everywhere.
okay, yeah.
And 67 days later, after you fixed it, why do you respond to Microsoft? So it's in a later version. What is your response to these? Like, you know,
Do they have any indication that this is connected to curl?
it might not be. I mean, by all accounts, the coordination is they've installed where they never installed it before. They've installed curl, and now they have malware on those systems. They have logs saying info exfil, and it's being mediated by curl. You can see the user agent in the logs.
Well, I can only help them if there's data to prove that it is connected to
So
code
you
and
just go
other-
into the
otherwise
normal-
I'm not able to analyze their systems
Right.
or malware.
So, when you declared a major incident, does that have a timeline? Is it now done? It's 67 days later now.
Yeah, it might have been done.
Yeah.
Probably.
So you're,
Possibly at least. It depends a bit, yeah. Maybe.
so not only is there a time to declare it, but there's a time to say when it's ended.
Yeah.
Right, this might be a brand new thing, something unrelated. Could be the malware. Maybe someone had.
Yeah, but I think this alone does not constitute a major crisis again, because
Right.
it's just a claim.
Right. Right. So
But
you're
it
not
could be.
declaring a major crisis.
Not yet.
Okay. Fair enough.
Whether it's done is also going to depend on whether you concluded the first time if it was malicious or not.
Yes, possibly.
I think we can imply that.
But there is
The-
malware on Windows every day.
Well,
Yes.
yes,
Windows
but
is a
with the
malware.
particular thing you suggested.
It's plausible that you want that, and someone just took advantage of it.
Doesn't
Certainly.
necessarily look malicious.
Yeah.
A hex string thing looks malicious.
That's a good question. What would the curl team do with that user and that commit? Would you talk to them who committed it? Would you try? Let's say,
The user who committed it.
yeah, let's say you can actually, not talk to them, but would you?
probably try to contact?
Yeah. So, yes, that would be one sort of that I alluded to, the sort of assess how did it get there and sort of understand it. That would be sort of who wrote it, who committed it, and how did it get there. And depending on what users who did it, and the response there, I would sort of get some kind of sense for what the purpose was.
So
I would hope
when you
at
do
least.
that, you can't find the user anymore. Their account's
Yeah,
gone.
burner account.
Right, but then if the account is gone, that would sort of just make it slightly more likely that it was actually intentionally bad.
So
Will-
maybe he's not to ask that question day 67. Maybe that's part of your plan.
Right, like, as I said, I didn't, but like, if you delete the user, it doesn't mean, like, probably people were sending him emails too, that they were like, why are you hacking my computer or whatever.
Yeah, but I was thinking about the earlier research that I would have done already before it went public.
To assess the risk of the first problems,
But-
you would also have to look at who provided it and what the possible intentions are. And if you could contact that person or see the history of the person, what else he has done, does it look like a normal account of a developer, or is it just some puppet, you say, right?
Created the account
So
a week
is-
before, and
and
that was the only thing.
That doesn't prove anything if the account is gone, but at least raises the suspicion a little bit more to like, this may have been
So it
intentional.
would depend when
And
the
if-
account will vanish.
Yeah. So if the account just vanishes, we could say like, this might be very well have been intentional with malintent. So we should be extra careful to look at the recent commits and changes. Not only from this user, but possibly, I mean, there could have been other burner accounts, right?
Well, they could have had other commits, but I'm sure at the time you found it, you would check,
Yeah.
cross-check all their commits to the project.
So that would be part of the first analysis of the first
Right,
project.
and if the account is gone, that was certainly sort of be a strong indicator that something is
Yeah.
suspicious here.
Yeah.
I mean, not necessarily, but it's at least an indicator.
Is there anything we can do to make people more knowable? Like we allow people to be pretty anonymous raising a commit against the project, right?
Oh yes, we have a lot of anonymous.
We do, and what's like there's a balancing off. Like what does that mean? If we you have to sign your commits, right? You have to like what levels of knowing this person before we let them commit stuff. That's an ongoing conversation
Yeah, but-
everywhere.
But the thing is that
The person does not commit.
No, the person does not commit,
Yes.
and we really should not rely on us knowing the person.
So-
So sort of then that's a failure in the process, right? It should be we should verify everything as if we don't know them.
So because of that, Daniel number 2's account was suspended because he was the actual person who committed the PR.
Oops.
GitHub has all of a sudden decided that there's a new problem here, and they see a dots.
Right.
I drive away with my
Yeah.
Ferrari into my
Yeah.
Yeah, but your Ferrari is not working.
Right. So because
Doesn't work.
because we shadow all the commits into the system, you're going to get caught up with the whatever analysis. It could be automated analysis. It could just be someone arbitrarily saying, "Better safe than sorry." Better make sure Stefan has no more
Okay,
access.
so my GitHub account is suspended.
Yeah. Oh wait. Next day, security researchers have discovered the issue is not curl, but downloading of cert data PEM. Huh? Because of the original vulnerability, the curl team did a root and branch review, but it takes a long time, and obviously you focused on the last thing. But you noticed in 99.98.1 that you did some cleanup on Perl code using Perl tidy. And one character change caused a problem. Basically, you can use Unicode, you can have one character change, and that can change a URL into a Punycode, and I can go register that Punycode, and I can do stuff, right? So in MakeCL, whatever the Perl code is, you found a change, make CA bundle. You don't see it because when you're reviewing all the Perl, when you're reviewing all the Perl code, what would you drill down into this? You would. You probably would. And what would you see? Well, can you really Sure, but are you going to go through every file and see that some of those characters aren't actually an O or a 0 or it's a Unicode character?
That's why there should be a test case using Trurl to check all
Excellent.
Good point there.
But because of that, when we create that PEM file, we're actually taking it from an evil domain now. So it's a man-in-the-middle PEM file. So everything, all those downloads you have going for your website is poisoned. People doing bad stuff. No PR is required. Yeah. Don't need anything. I could just do this anyways. So what's the point? The point is that the first vulnerability was a shadow. It distracted you. The actual vulnerability wanted to run for a much longer time. It wanted to get onto the website. And if I look at all of curl, the biggest risk is actually, I think, the PEM file. Yeah, because a lot of people are downloading it, a lot of people are using it. And if that file ever, and why are we hosting it? That's a huge risk, giant risk. And we have code that's easy to you don't need to be an expert to get one character change. Now I'm going to tell you, when I did the Perl Critic, Perl tidy stuff, I did inject a few of these. Some of the times I would never commit bad characters into the code base, but none of you found it. Yeah.
No.
But you weren't looking because you trusted.
No, partly that, and partly because we never sort of got to. But yeah.
Sure. But you understand someone else might go quicker or whatever. But I was kind of trying to make more times so you could look at the code. And really, there's if someone like a Yi Tan who's going to spend 2 years and probably has a lot of resources behind them and sock puppets and resources, you're going to get different kinds of attacks. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, if someone could defile a cert data PEM, it could be a really bad thing. My feeling is it's such a huge risk that why are we doing it? Is it worth the risk? Or maybe all that you have to do to solve.
Possibly reverse that question as well.
Yeah.
What risk do we add by removing it? I mean, to the entire ecosystem that is now sort of leaning on that pretty heavily.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that is actually that case, but it could be that case.
But I guess the point I'm saying is not about just PEM. I'm just saying to assess risk, real risk. We're thinking about source code, the code that's doing stuff. This is inert stuff. Maybe all we have to do is not bake in, these URLs and bring them in as encrypted secrets, at the right point in time. Yeah, just as a
Right,
different
yeah.
way to deal with it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one way to
Yeah.
sort of make it.
Yeah.
at least.
And I don't think we have many of these kind of things in the code base, but you know, that was sort of the thing, that if you were someone willing to spend 2 years, you know, you'd be willing to have a shadow attack, shadow distraction attack. That's 99.99.1. Make you tired. You're tired. You know, you declare your major. You think you've done it. Da 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 da. But all you've done is extended the window of the real attack for much longer. And you totally distracted them, you know, and they now own a lot of boxes out there. Yeah. Right.
Well, potentially.
Everything's potential, plausible,
Because this
but
is a
plausibility.
doing this attack is a sort of this is just a one step in a very complicated attack. So there's sort of
Sure.
they have to do a lot of other things.
Just like E10, and a lot of complications happen. Actually, I think they overcomplicated things a bit, but you know, curl, the project is a very mature, does a lot of the right things, but that doesn't mean, given the right E10 level of resources, you're immune. You know.
No. We're certainly not immune.
I was thinking more about this NDA thing, and stop me if I'm hijacking this. But even if you were, like, if you go back to the beginning of the last scenario, and you signed an NDA and discovered an XZ level compromise, and it's a 0 day, this company's infected, you know others are going to be infected soon. And so you tell the company, okay, I've got this patch, here you go, now I want to release it. And they go, hold on a moment, we need 6 months to upgrade all our systems. You can't go public with this. You signed an NDA, sorry. Is this something that we're potentially exposed to? You can't tell anyone else, and on the curl security team?
You might have to do it and suffer the legal consequences afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, why not? I mean, in the case, in a world where we have NDAs, I guess that's sort of a potential scenario, right?
Actually, NDA is a pretty non-enforceable to begin with in Europe.
Yeah, and it's sort of
yeah.
yes, and there could, I mean, it would be depending on exactly what the NDA would say too, right? And sort of,
And would you use curl money to defend yourself? Like questions like that.
yeah, that's
Sure.
a good. That's a good question.
Yeah?
Sure.
And you want to kind of have that thought of before you're making these decisions. Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure I need to have those questions before, because I mean we have a pretty good open discussion in the
Sure.
team already. So I mean the second this would happen, we would have an ongoing discussion about all of these details all the way through. So I wouldn't feel left alone, or sort of I don't need to do all of these decisions by myself, because we would at least be more people involved. So depending on exactly how overloaded I would become of it, we would be more people, and I wouldn't be, I wouldn't have a trouble to ask for help, or you know, widen the number of people that could help out if I would feel the need. So I'm actually pretty confident in that we would solve this kind of scenario. Maybe not in a good way, but at least in a sort of decent way.
So if you ever go to the mailing list and you say, guys, hypothetically, if there were a compromising curl and I couldn't tell you about it, what would we do in that situation?
Maybe around this part.
Just to know if it's a right.
So, oh yeah, we've kind of. I'm
They
so
would have
sorry
to
about the
agree
time.
on a specific code word.
Yeah,
to use.
exactly.
Umbrella, shoebox.
So-
Mary on the website, curl has not had a compromise in 92 days, but that ever gets deleted around.
A new graph. Yeah, I can see a new graph.
A new dashboard thing.
So, like I don't think we're going to go through this in detail right now. It's 5:20. You know, we've done a very tiny CTX, and it's kind of more talking than like that. But what you do normally after this, we go, right, we're done. Let's go through. Let's do a post-mortem. We'd ask ourselves, right, let's go look across all of curl and really assess risk. What is the riskiest things? Is it our use of CI? You know, we have unlimited CI from GitHub. Could someone use that for bad purposes? You know, we naturally think of the security of the source code. It could just be you know, it could be the other stuff like PEM. Let's assess what's the scariest thing about this project. Yeah. So we know curl. If curl has a RC in it, that would be a bad thing. Yeah, we wouldn't want that. If we have risks, do we need to accept them? Like, do we need curl container? Like, I see curl container as a huge risk. Yeah, if someone got into that, they could do bad stuff in a lot of places. Is it worth the risk of us doing the distribution? Yeah, it's the same thing with the pen. Like, is it worth the risk? Could that be done somehow by someone else, a foundation or someone who's more natural for it? So, you know, enumerating risks is a really good thing. What response plan would have a communication plan? Incident commander. How we communicate. It might be, you know, a 24-hour thing, with daytime here and nighttime in the States. Do we have a phone number for a PR person? You know, have you figured out with commercial things with Wolf SSL if a major incident happens? Is there a different approach from them? What happens if you are taken off of, you don't have access to GitHub, to your ability to analyze things? What actions to make better? So I hope we've made notes. Yeah, I haven't seen the. Let me just take a look at where the notes are. I feel like there was some.
Yeah, if part of the team are excluded, are locked by GitHub, we would have a hosted Git repository somewhere else, right? To collaborate.
So they're
yeah, exactly. If we would have GitHub problems, we would have a mirror somewhere else in no time and work around it somehow. And
so maybe we have that, or we should have that a mirror just set up now. So during major incident, we just switch over instead of having to deal with.
Yeah, but that has its own problem if we set up before we need it, because then you have like, well, how do you handle access to it and
yeah,
how
maintenance of that.
Yeah,
so
fair enough.
I actually think that if it happens, I mean, we all have Git checkouts, right? So it would be, if we just set up a new Git instance somewhere, it's just a matter of pushing it somewhere that we can make. So we can make a GitLab or a code, whatever they're called, sort of wherever, or just a private one. I mean,
just a private one or one with Codeberg or whatever.
Exactly, or I show up as fake Bagger on GitHub suddenly, and I'm no, but I think that's that's an instant thing to do. Right. We don't need to have that.
Right. So some things we don't have to be crazy, you know, obsessive level of detail, but like identifying communication, identifying roles, identifying commitment. It might be that some of us on the security team just like want to run away. We don't want to have the media attention. Yeah, it might be a period. It might be a time in our life that we can't have it. Yeah, it might be some other thing. But you know, I think just we should have that discussion on security team talk. Instead of just assume that level of commitment is there when a major incident happens. And we talk about things like what wasn't simulated by the CTX. I mean, this is a really sliced, really small version of the CTX. Yeah, not as interactive as you'd get. Like if we were going to do this again at next curl up, for example, how much would you like it? Would you like to do it again? Would you like it to be detailed? Would you like it to be more real? You know, and we don't have to answer that now, but you know, it might be something. The thing with security is that it should be an updatable thing. It shouldn't be something you make and then it just grows stale and that's it. It's something you should review, you know, every once in a while. And look, we're an open source project. Who's going to write an incident response plan? Yeah, who's going to you know, do any of this stuff? I mean, you know, what would survive battle for us? You know, I think there's a couple of things we can do. You know, an incident response plan is you know, something we already do a lot of this right now with the security team and HackerOne down to, you know, to generating CVE. But I'm talking about major incident workflow. After, you know, we're doing this normally, but we now have an obviously, and when does that trigger and when does it end? And what do we do differently during that time? Yeah. Right, that's all I have. Any questions? No questions.
I think it's a useful exercise.
Yes.
Good sort of
Yes.
food for thoughts. And
Yes.
Cool. Like with open source, it's different as well because you're not grabbing onto the same, no one's getting paid to do PR or being the incident commander or, it's hard to.
I think my thoughts currently about this exercise is like, I feel confident with the security team's competence and handling of the technical aspects, like analysis of changes, making a fix, blah, 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 blah. I think I feel very confident, even if we have to improvise on the fly because of different, however the scenario will actually be. And what I think might be a good idea is for the competences we need which are not in the team, like communication or so, if we can team up with, Daniel says like, I have contact for reviewing an NDA, right? So that's one thing sorted out, which is a competence outside of the team. Know someone who can review such a contract for obvious stupid things. When it comes to communication, handling communication, if it really gets the press attention, that might be worth asking around if there is someone who
I think banding up is good.
projects.
It might even be worth talking to Fedora, Red Hat, like as many
Yeah.
people as possible to
Yeah.
bandy together.
To say like, if something happens to one of the projects you bundle,
Yeah.
what is your plan to handle this?
So I'm wondering if curl were to create an incident response plan or have to deal with all these bullet points, would that information be public for review to anyone, or would it be kept?
That would be the excellent thing to do publicly, I think. Since it's
So that anyone can
exactly, that's just a plan. This is a sort of a bullet points to just follow in case of a situation.
Doesn't that expose? Doesn't it create a sort of vulnerability because if the attacker knows the exact the response that will be taken?
So I think when I'm thinking of such an incident plan, I'm really thinking about like the general structure and identifying like which contacts we would want to use or whom we would like to team up in a short second. But I'm not thinking about like what you see in a Hollywood movie, like you bind the 3 and go on page 425 and follow exactly the plan steps. So this is not the plan I would be thinking about. So in that sense, it's more like defines the skeleton of how to, and there will be lots of improvisation inside this framework. So in that way, it's also not as exploitable because there is not a one-by-one instruction which you can exploit. Right?
Also,
And then you could hope, I think, then other projects or distros review this and give their comments on it. And say like, okay, that could be a good template for us as well, or we think the following for us should be different and maybe it's for you as well. So then you have a communication between projects with a similar background, which might be very helpful.
That kind of surprises me that no such template exists.
Yeah.
As far as I know, none of the open source projects or distros have created a template, especially after the exact incident.
Sounds like something OpenSSF should be involved in.
Yes.
There is, if you talk to Pete Allor from Red Hat, he'll say there's open source artifacts like this out there, but they're all derived from heavy duty commercial. They're just too big, and you after reading the 10th page, you'd be like, well, we can't do this.
So that's like what Red Hat sells to, or what's the
No,
customers really?
no, we
Or
don't.
they-
But I'm just saying, in existence, there are documents that have been attempts at doing, having an open source thing. I just think that everything has to be like, it just has to be a template in a GitHub repo and go from there.
about the possible vulnerability, from what I understand, from what you're saying, a lot of what the plan needs to do is avoid internal chaos and know how to deal with
Yes.
the general public.
Yes.
I'm not sure that's something that's going to be a target for exploiting.
There's probably nothing super unique about it that they're
It's
like, oh, this is what we're going to do.
it's not
you know,
about
what we're
processes for the security reviews. That's something you know how to do.
And I think one of the benefits of just having it written, I mean, as Stefan said, it's not going to say, talk to this person, or this is the email we're going to send emails to, because that would be clearly exploitable. Or
It's going to be about to decide on day one who's the spokesperson.
exactly, and it would also be make a good checklist, basically, that we're just that we don't forget stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be mentioned there, right?
Yeah,
so
when-
just read this and make sure that we have remembered all
It's a
the
bit
important
like
stuff.
a release
Yeah.
checklist that make sure not to forget to update whatever file somewhere.
Yeah. Because it will be a little bit chaotic when,
Yeah.
when shits hit the fan, as you say. So it's good to have a checklist, yeah, that's true.
So we have the video of this, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I can make more notes. That I can go through the video
I'm
and
going to
sort of
stop the
assimilate.
recording now.
I mean, legally, this whole thing